is like a 70s vibe, which I think this next movie kind of had that same vibe to it too, I think, in some ways, right?
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I guess it does. Because the plot. Yeah, you're right. Actually, it does have a vibe, kind of like
Like a
So we're talking
quiet
about time
vibe.
crime.
Yeah,
Yeah,
time crime or
it
time crimes, or is it
time crimes or Cronocrimen,
plural? Oh, there we go.
which I prefer the Spanish title. It sounds better in Spanish, but time crimes is good. Um, because it's a very it's paradoxically a simple premise, but also very complex at the same time.
Hmm.
Um, and it's essentially a story about a guy that, well, I guess you could say it's a guy who time travels, but all these bad things happen to him. Like it's not what anyone would expect, and he's not a willing participant in the time travel.
Right. It's like
Um,
inadvertently time traveling. It's not
yeah,
like something he's consciously wanting to do. It's like
yeah.
he's part of this bigger thing that's around him. Um, no, but go ahead, go ahead.
I think no, I think that's everything. I think we're gonna have to jump into spoilers quickly with this one too, because there's no
Yeah,
way. The only thing I will
you kind of
say
have
is
to.
I'm so happy that the two movies we picked, because Weird Al we picked just because it came out. That's one of the new release. But the two movies we picked have full frontal boob shots within the first 5 minutes.
That's right.
So
I
I
completely
like how
forgot
we
about
did that
that.
without even thinking. Like that was just like, oh, this is great. I'm so glad we're both on the same page with
Oh
this.
my gosh. It tells you all the type of viewers we are.
But let me put a little spoiler. So we're gonna go into heavy spoilers here, um, because it is a time travel movie, but it's maybe it's been done before, but I've never seen a time travel movie done like this.
Hmm.
Um, everything, how would I put it? Everything that happens in the time travel, you actually see in the first shot. So you see all the
Yeah,
different timelines,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it's so clever the way they did it, because it's and it's not multiple universes. The way they do time travel is time is a straight line, but there can be reflections. So you can have all these
Right.
different like branching things, but it always comes back together, right? And
Hmm.
everything that happens. So again, this is major spoilers. Everything that happens to the main guy
Hmm.
has already happened, and he's just playing the role to get everything back to normal. And sometimes he doesn't even realize he's playing that role.
Hmm.
That's what I found super interesting. Um, and even I don't know. I'll just leave it there. We could just start from there, because I can get really, really into this, because I love the way they did time travel in this.
I think for me, I was trying. I'm so into the movie that I think the first thing that blew me away was like the cinematography and the silence. And to me, I think that's why I said that it reminded me like a lot of like old 70s movies, because a lot of them do have, no soundtrack to them, and it's just, natural ambience noise. And I think for the majority of the movie, he's outside, in like the woods and in his house by himself or something. And I love that because it's just you don't know what's going on, but you're just solely focused on his actions and where he's going. But so for me, like I was caught off guard when you get the reveal that it's a time travel movie, and it's different versions of him are in those same scenes, but you just don't realize it. So I love that about it. I think eventually it did have your natural like suspenseful music or whatever, which I understand, but I it had a great flow to it from the beginning to end, and I just love the like at the end of the day, it really was a simple plot. It was about him just trying to hark back to seeing his wife. That's essentially what it is. He's just trying so hard to get back to that, and I love that. It's just the perfect ending. It's just him sitting down, relaxing, peaceful tranquility. After everything he's been through. I think doesn't the whole movie start with him like starting like he's trying to like get a chair in his house or something or like
They're
getting
trying to get
moved
the table in the house.
the table in the house, right? Like
Yeah.
just something basic like that. But it's such a simple thing, but he's kind of like tired coming from work and he's not trying to do it for his wife right then and there. But at the
Yeah,
end,
he's making his wife do all these different things. It's pretty funny.
right, but at the end it's completely it's like a role
Yeah.
reversal. Like at the end, like he's willing to do whatever it takes just to have like a silent moment with his wife, which I loved. It's just like the perfect, arc from A to B.
Well, it's exactly to your point. It starts off like he's just coming home, ready to relax. His life isn't too complicated, right? But literally, like outside of his control, his life literally gets turned upside down. And in order for it to
Mhm.
get to somewhat back to normal, he does all these things. Because the first couple of shots is just him relaxing outside with his binoculars, just being
Right.
chill. The last shot, he's all beaten up and everything. He survived all these
Yeah.
accidents and everything, like everything he's had to do, just like you said. And it's like, it's and if you don't know what this movie is about going in, it really does seem like a horror film at first. Like it just seems like this
Mhm.
weird, crazy horror film about some guy trying to kill this like guy like for no reason.
Mhm.
Um, and the way they handle, I love that it's a very almost dark look at time travel and how like quickly everything can go wrong.
Yeah.
Um, and he's such a what really gets me is he's such an unwilling participant. And the only reason, if you really, because I've seen this a couple of times now, the only reason any of this happens is because, so for context, what you end up finding out pretty soon is that like the house he's in, there's a fenced off area because there's like a wooded part and then there's a fenced off area. And you find out that there's kind of this like small research lab there, but it's
Mhm.
like really small and it's the weekend and there's not supposed to be anyone there, but there's this one worker there, and you find out at the very end that he came that Saturday to
Mhm.
turn on the machine. The machine had never been turned on. It wasn't supposed to be turned on for another 6 months, but he
Yeah.
wasn't going to be there when they were going to turn it on. He was just curious of what would happen. And so from his perspective, literally the second he turns it on, someone comes out of the machine, which is the main guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
And
it would be the 3rd guy, I think, right? Isn't that what
yeah,
happened?
the third guy who hides.
The 3rd version
No,
of him.
yeah, who hides because in the
Mhm.
second one, yeah. And it's dude, I
So
love that. I
crazy.
love that about this. It's yeah, I
I
don't
love
know.
your point though about the dark tone of time travel because I think when anyone thinks about time travel, what's the first movie you think about?
Back to
Back
the
to the
Future.
Future, right?
Yeah.
And that's just such a fun ride. It's positive. Of course, you want to go back, right? It's like the 1960s, but you're not thinking about what's really going on around that time, right? They don't really talk about dark things. It's just a positive, fun ride. So for this to be a complete 180, you're like, oh man, it's a reminder that it's not necessarily a good thing.
Because
You mess with time, and your life's gonna completely change, and
and you're gonna be
what you might
doing
want to do.
things that like you would never thought you would do. Like that's the
Hmm.
crazy part with this guy.
Yeah, I mean the core to course correct something like such a simple thing. It seems so difficult because it's the smallest thing will just change everything.
And he
Um,
only went back in time a few hours. It's not like so that's what I love
yes,
about this. Technically,
exactly.
this only takes place within it, like it's the length of the movie. It's an hour and a half.
Hmm.
That's how long this he only
It's literally
goes
like an
back an hour and a
afternoon to
half.
the
Yeah.
nighttime, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not even that long because yeah, you see him like arriving from work, which is probably like 2 or 3 o'clock or something like that. He's
Yeah, because it's
tired,
like the week. It's like yeah, it's
and
like
then
Friday, I
yeah,
guess.
like he slowly is. I think he's in the wooded area for like a good portion of the afternoon,
Yeah.
and the whole climactic scene is him, trying to go back to the facility where the time machine is, and that's all at nighttime.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, it just happens within like you say, like 4 or 5 hours or something like that, and that's good though. But it just shows you like how crazy time travel can be and how dangerous it is
And how
under.
easy it is to fuck things up.
Yeah,
That's the
seriously.
thing. Um, that's and I feel bad because so it's actually a very small cast, and I love how they did that, and it works really well. Like it doesn't
Hmm.
feel like that whole isolated feeling actually works really well because you have the main guy, you have the scientist, and you have the wife, but then you also have this girl who just happened to be riding her bike because she gets
Yeah.
involved in it too, and
Hmm.
her story really sucks. Like there's
I
no
know.
there's no
Oh
because
my god,
at
you
first
just
you think
reminded me of it.
yeah, because at
Mm,
first, so the
so
way it
sad.
really starts off is when he's sitting alone by himself. His wife goes out to pick up dinner. He's just looking with his binoculars in the woods because he thinks he sees something. And then all of a sudden, he sees like this young girl take
Yeah.
off her top and she's topless in the woods. And he's like, what? And so
Right.
that's why he ends up going into the woods in the first place.
Mhm.
But what you find out is that the second version of himself when he because so the first time he goes to the woods, that's version one, Hector one, right? And then
Mhm.
he gets involved into this whole time travel thing because he finds this lab, and you're seeing it. It's pretty much from his perspective, from Hector
Right.
one's perspective. You see everything.
Yeah.
He finds a lab. Um, when he goes into the woods, he's being chased by this guy in this bandage and all that stuff, and the guy
Ink
just like
bandages.
stabs him
Yeah.
for no reason in his arm
Hmm.
because he sees the girl and it looks like she's dead in the woods. And at this
Right.
point, she's naked, so maybe someone killed her. By the
Right.
way, she's very hot. I was just gonna say that. I was like, damn.
What's her name, Fido? I think you know this.
I had it written down somewhere actually. I don't. It's Gabriella something.
She's on your
Um,
wallpaper. Don't lie to us.
yeah, I know. That's what I'm trying to hide my desktop here.
No, but yeah, no, she's good though. Yeah, small cast, but everyone did their role perfectly
Yeah,
fine, I think. But yeah,
and
no, that character, I think what you're saying, it's tragic
it is
as you're describing.
because when you find out, because at first you think, oh my god, so she's dead in the woods, right? Like you're like
Hmm.
that sucks. But then one of his other versions, you find out. So this is a big spoiler. He is the masked man. So the guy you see in all the posters and everything, that's the same lead. It's just a
Hmm.
different point in time, a different version when he's time travel because he gets into an accident and he has a huge gash on his head, and so he puts this band-aid and it all turns red and everything, right? And so what he realizes with the girl is he recreates that scene just because he saw it before.
Yeah, which is crazy, by the way.
Yeah, and but then you realize, oh, the girl wasn't dead. He told her to just
Right.
play dead.
Yeah.
But then there's this final scene in the house where like he thinks his like one of the versions, like he ends up going back to his house at night and the wife is there, sees him all beat up and everything. He's like, oh my God, what happened? What happened? And then like he's trying to help her and he chases her, and
Yeah.
it seems like the wife dies, right?
Right.
Because she's scared of him and everything. But when you find out at the very end, it's not the wife, it's the girl. Because the
Yeah.
final version of him realizes what has to happen. And so he kind of sets everything in motion in order to save his wife. This other girl has to die. And it gets very dark. I think like that ending is just so dark.
It's
Because it's just
sad.
him sitting down. It's like, all right, well, this has to happen. And like the
Hmm.
wife is freaking out because she has no idea what's happening this entire because
Right.
she literally leaves, everything's fine. She comes back, there's this maniac running around the house, her husband's all beat up and everything, and it's like, and then all of a sudden this girl falls off the roof and dies. It's so fucking insane.
It's a crazy reveal because the first time you see, like, the wife falling down, it's a big shock to me. I was like, "Oh my god," like, this guy, just this buffoon, because you think she thinks he's being chased by some criminal or whatever, but, that just makes it worse, I think, because 'cause you're like, "Oh," like, it's not his wife, like you said, it's gotta be this person, and, he it's you can tell he feels bad about it, but at the same time,
Yeah.
he's still dark and he's going through it, like, hey, he's telling her, like, "Cut your hair off so it looks like his wife.
And put
Put
this
this
jacket
jacket
on.
on."
The girl
His
doesn't know though.
wife,
She's unaware of what's gonna happen.
she has no clue, she's just an innocent bystander, but she's going through with it? But, yeah, it sucks. It really, really sucks, and I think, yeah, that's, like, the second to last thing that happens in the movie. Because then afterwards, he's just, like, goes down to get his wife, and he's, completely in shock, I would say, in himself, but yeah, that sucked. That really sucked for that character.
I felt real bad.
Um,
And like that's a good point. That's a really because like when the final scene is playing out, like you see it in his eyes, he's like right before he turns out, he's like, you're a real charming girl. Like, but
yeah.
he's what he's really saying is like, it really sucks that this has to happen. But he's like,
Mhm.
he's like, I can't do anything.
That's the thing. Well, I think even he knows that, as he's sitting down, he's happy because he finally got what he got, but,
Yeah. Everything he's had to
a huge
do.
cost though,
Yeah.
it's continuing on. It's like his life is gonna be, haunted by that one moment.
Ah, it's
Um,
so good.
it's a
It's
it's a it's a crazy ride. I mean, and again, though, it just reminds you that time travel is not something people should mess with because
yeah.
it's crazy. Just seeing him trying to recreate all these moments that you see in the first scene as Hector 1, you're like, "This is crazy," and I love the scene where he's at the woods, and he's trying to recreate a moment where he sees the guy with the bandages
Oh yeah.
poke with him. So when he has to get to that moment second time to be that person, I'm like, how is he gonna know which spot to be specifically? And I love how they actually spent like a good time where he's like kind of freaking out, like, well, was I here to doing this?
Right.
Or was I here? So I love that moment. When he's finally like takes that breath and he's like, no,
And he
this
feels it.
and then he sees his other version or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's I don't know. Time travel,
Well, even just like
dangerous power.
like you said, those small scenes, like I love the first time he makes it to the lab. It feels so creepy because you have the music playing and he has
Hmm.
to break in and you have no idea what's happening. And then the guy, he meets up with the scientist, and the scientist tells him, he's like, oh, like he tells the scientist, he's like, this guy's chasing me, this guy's chasing me. And like
Yeah.
at first you think you're like, oh my God, this guy's trying to kill him. He meets the scientist, and the scientist says, hide here, hide in this thing. And he's like, you're coming in with me. He's like, yeah, just hide here, just hide here. He starts to close the thing. He's like,
Yeah.
hey, what are you doing? You have no idea what's happening.
What a
And
jerk.
I love that like time travel is instantaneous. Like he
Mhm.
instantaneously comes to when the guy first turned on the machine, and the guy at that point already kind of knows what's happening.
Yeah.
And you don't, as the audience member, you don't know because you're seeing it from Hector's perspective,
Mhm.
that he's already come through and done all these other things. I think that's great.
But I think what's cool is that you see, like, the subtle reveals, though, because even that Hector or which I guess you're following Hector 1, right? You see him
Yeah.
seeing that this character, this guy that works for the time travel company is a complete liar,
Right.
and he's revealing all these little secrets like, "Oh, I kept this power source away from you for a reason. You told me to do it," you know?
Yeah. I love that scene when he's like, wait a minute, why isn't there a power source here? He's like, how did
Mhm.
you know? He's like, how
Right.
did you know I was going to ask about that?
Right,
And then
exactly.
when he goes back, he has to recreate that whole scene. It's so crazy. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, you think he's gotta stab himself, he's
Yeah.
gotta tell a woman to strip down to their nudes, he's gotta
Dude,
run himself over on a truck,
the
it's
way they did
crazy.
that scene with the woman the first time, I was like, holy shit. Like, this is like, it just seems like some crazy dude. Cause like he has bandages on his head and then he picks up this like old trench coat. And then that's when he tells her, he's like, pull your top up. This whole thing is crazy. Like, it feels crazy. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, the poster definitely gives that vibe too. You think
Yeah.
it's gonna be like some crazy, like, psycho killer type of movie, but it's definitely a little completely different, and I love how it's, turned to be, I guess, pink bandages,
Yeah.
right? I love that use of color because I mean, it could have been red, but I think pink works better. It just makes it unique and stand out.
And so this was the first time you saw it, right?
Yes, first time, and then you recommended it to me, which I loved. Um, this was, filmed in Spain, or
It was, yeah. So that's what I loved about
okay.
it. And it's like the only reason I found out about this was through Netflix way back in the day.
Oh, when you
It
got the
recommended
CDs
it to me. Yeah, this was like yeah, exactly.
or the
Um,
DVDs, I should say.
the DVDs, yeah. And I had never heard of it. And then I was like, it's in Spain. And I was like, whoa, that's so cool. And the fact that it was like a low budget movie, time travel movie from Spain. And I was like, what? And I think to
Mhm.
me, that's why it's a lot darker than most things. Just in general, like a lot of Spanish movies tend to be darker. Like they tend to deal with more darker subject matter. And I
Pan's
think the
Labyrinth,
actors just did
another
it
one,
well.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Did you did you see it in Spanish or dubbed?
Oh, no, definitely Spanish,
Okay, good. Yeah.
and I always tell people when you're watching international movies, definitely watch it, with the audio track that was given to it. Dubbing is just for the most part, from in my experiences, they're just terrible,
It
it just
is.
takes away from the actual performances by the actors in those countries. I love you miss the tone, the emphasis in their wording and all those
And their
type of
body, yeah,
things.
exactly, because it's all
Yeah,
part of one thing.
and it works with their mannerisms on top of that. Like, the guy who played Hector was great, I loved his somber tone because he's just, like
Yeah,
he's serious, but at the same time, like, there's, like, a slight hint of, like, confused, like,
yeah,
he just doesn't know what the hell's going on,
yeah.
and I love that. Um, yeah, he's a great actor. I need to find out more about his, career, what else he's done.
Same here, and, I like the apparently the guy who, the scientist was the writer-director. A and
Oh,
apparently he
nice,
was known
nice.
more for comedies, like, this was his first non-comedy thing.
Really?
Yeah,
Whoa, I like that,
yeah.
I like that.
He
Just
actually there's a short I'll probably, if I remember, I'll send it to you. There's a short he did where it's like this woman goes to get breakfast and
mhm.
everyone's acting very strange. They're like, "What?" And then like she sits down to eat breakfast, and then everyone starts like imagine a musical but with real people, and they start dancing,
Alright.
and there's like they're reading things, and then he shows up, and you find out like he turned everything into a musical because he wants to impress her, but everyone's
Oh.
being forced to do it because he's strapped with dynamite. It's so insane.
Whoa. Okay, okay. I
Yeah,
gotta check this guy out. I think this came out in, 2007 or around that
yeah, like
time,
around
maybe?
that time. Yeah,
That's crazy, man.
it's good. I
I
highly
liked it.
recommend it.
No, well
Um,
done. But yeah, tell me tell me some of the reviews here.
yeah.
What do the people think?
Overall, so this was another one where like most people like it, but it's hard to get reviews because it's so old.
Hmm.
Um, so the only ones I was able to find. So I always start off with the negative.
I like how 2008 is old, by the way.
Yeah, I know, right? That man
Published 2008, 12, December 12th,
from
December 11th.
Big Picture, Big Sound.
Big picture, big sound.
Joe Lazito. So the I don't know the whole thing here. I'm just gonna read a little part of it
Yeah.
where he gives a synopsis. It all starts in a Spanish country house where Hector and his companion Clara are unpacking from their move. While
Mm,
Clara is off shopping for dinner, Hector relaxes on a lawn chair to engage in a few innocent glances through his binoculars. While gazing into the woods in the distance, he sees the kind of thing people only see in thrillers: an attractive young woman undressing. The sadly exploited beauty, Barbara Goenaga. Goenaga. This
mhm.
right here, I'm like, what are you talking about? She's exploited. She signed up for the role, and like the role herself is actually pretty insane that she has in there.
This feels like
Um,
a critic from that would say that's today. You know what
yeah, exactly.
I
But it's
mean?
from 2008. I was like, oh, when I saw that, I was like,
He
come
was way
on,
ahead of the
dude.
curve. You know, he's really ahead, Fido.
This was like, ugh. But
Yeah,
what I
no one's
hate,
forcing her to do this. This is her decision. You know, this is her a role for her. You
yeah,
know what I
and
mean?
she's done plenty of things, and it's like you see this. It's not like these things are hidden when you do the script, and like, and she knows she's actually good friends with the director. Like they've known each other from previous things. It's not like this is the first time they're working together. I was just
And I
like,
would
oh.
argue that her character is really important and pivotal to the story. You know, it's
And the
not just
most
like
tragic
some.
character. She's the most
Yeah,
tragic character out of all of them.
it's yeah. I mean, come on. It's
Um,
not just like a some throwaway character. It's definitely someone you feel sorry for at the end. You know.
yeah, exactly. I really like. I
And that's only
honestly
because of
felt bad
her
for her.
performance. I think if it wasn't for her performance, I don't think we would care, you know?
Exactly, because she's out of all of them, she's the most like. No, she did not want to be a part of this. She was just trying to be a good
Mhm,
person at first because she's trying to help the guy who got into a car accident.
mhm.
And then she gets looped into this whole crazy thing. So that I was like, that really rubbed me the wrong. I was like, oh, come on. And so it goes on. It's a short thing, but I wanted to do this part.
Okay.
The time travel stories certainly don't require big budgets. In fact, sometimes the vastly superior primer, they're better off without one. Like Steven
Mhm,
Soderbergh's 2002 remake of Solaris, Time Crimes feels like it was made by a filmmaker who loves the genre but hasn't done his homework. Nothing
mhm,
in Time Crimes is a surprise. Stories like this have already been told time and time again. There's a lot here that I don't agree with at all.
mhm.
I love Primer, but I prefer this movie because for me, Primer, I think the problem I had with it was you
It's very
really
grounded.
need to watch it multiple times.
Yeah.
And like you have to like take notes and be like, okay, wait, so then this is happening, and then
Mhm,
this is I think Time Crimes, it doesn't give everything away, but you have a much better idea of what's going on and who's in which timeline. And it's all um it stays true to the logic it makes in Time
mhm.
Crimes without like getting so overly complicated where you're taking notes. I love Primer, but I really like Time Crimes. And then
They're both different films though, by the way, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think, this one has got more, of more of an upbeat thriller type of vibe to it, where, like,
yeah,
it keeps you entertained and, like, you know, it's got moments like that where they're just flipping things on you, you know, just keeping you on your toes. Whereas Primer is like a slow burn, you know, it's really sucking you into this deep hole into their world or whatever. But it's you know filled with like a lot of logistics and you know terminology that people wouldn't be used to. You know, it's definitely has a specific audience for it, which
and
is perfectly fine too. You know,
yeah,
but again, it's just different beats. You know, their reveals are a lot more somber and you know I don't know how to describe it. Just definitely still dark, but just in a different way. It's more of
right.
like holy crap, you know, self type of revelation type of thing. Whereas here it's like, you know, more suspenseful, thriller type, like I'm saying. Um, but again, it's just like different, two different type of films.
Yeah, I don't know why I don't know what this guy was expecting, and it's like because one of the biggest criticisms I have about certain time travel movies is that they break their own rules, right?
Hmm.
Like they'll say, "Oh, well, this can't happen or this can't happen," and that's what I liked about Time Crimes. It doesn't break the rules. It's literally following everything, and it explains it pretty easily. Where it's like This is time. Which is, I love how they did that. You see the explanation before you get it because he sees the
Mhm.
line and the X's.
Yeah.
Um, and then it's all mirrors, but time is just still one straight line. So
Yeah.
it's not like things are being branched off. So I liked it. So yeah, this review, I was just like, oh, come on. Like, it's the way it started off, and then the way he's hating on it. I was like, I don't know what you're expecting. Like, this was just, I don't know.
No, you need to have entertainment value too, you know, at the end of the day, it is a movie, and that's why we're watching these things. It's to entertain us, and to me, I think going back to it, it's a completely different vibe than Primer, and
Yeah.
this person clearly wants to, like, have, like, a book, you know, being depicted on screen, you know, which is exactly what Primer is, I think. It's more of that type of movie.
Well, Primer focuses more on the actual machine and the mechanics of it, right?
Yeah,
Like
and the
that's the
science
more of the
behind it.
focus. Yeah.
Right, and again, yeah, like I'm saying, like, they go into, like, the terminology and the real science of it, and if they can, you know, decipher what time travel is, you know, whatever. But
But what I do like, there are parallels because then they're trying to fix what they did, right? Because they're trying to
exactly.
create the rules of like, all right, well, no one goes before this time, or else it's gonna
Hmm.
screw everything up. And then they do that though.
Yeah, and they're stuck in a loop, and then
It's a
they
great film.
slowly
I
not
really like
trusting each
Primer.
other, you know. It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's different, but I'd like it too. But
But yeah, I just wanted to, the main thing that really irked me was
Joe
that
Lozito,
part. I was just like, oh,
you
come
offended my friend
on.
Joe Lozito.
I hated that. I was like, are you serious, dude?
Yeah, and again, I think she did a great job, and she knew exactly the tone for that character,
Yep.
innocent bystander, and it paid off at the end. So there's nothing wrong with that.
She's like the extreme version of the protagonist because the protagonist didn't choose to be involved in this. And she's more of
Mhm,
an extreme version of that, where it's like,
mhm.
man, you have no way out. Like this, it just sucks for you. Um,
That kinda reminds me of that review of, what that person said is kinda reminds me of, like, what the guy said about, one critique said about, Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time with, Margot Robbie. Do you remember that? Someone was, like, critiquing her role in the movie because they're like, "Oh, she's only got, like, 2 lines or 3 lines in it," you know what I mean? Like, she's just there for eye candy, and I'm like, "My guy, you do realize that you don't have to act just with words. You could do it, you know, just by looking and, you know, showing physical, you know, presence and facial things, you know? Um,
well, and it also played into the story itself because the entire thing is not actually about her. It's about the world that everyone's living in, that they're
mhm,
around, and it's about the people around them. It's not even really about her. You know what I mean?
right.
And like her role, they play it perfectly. I think she's set up perfectly because it's showing you what people saw from the outside, right? That's why the ending
Mhm.
is so different, right? Because it's kind of like what people would have wanted to happen instead of what actually happened.
Yeah, and
Um,
they're building to that moment because
yep.
we all know what happened to that
Yeah.
character or that person, you know, it's which is tragic.
Yeah.
So just I think he if anything, he was just showing, like, giving her presence to remind us that she was a person and
Yeah.
this was her life. Because we all remember, I think more people remember her because of the murder.
Yeah.
And
Instead of
we don't
her,
know enough
yeah.
about her life and her as an actress. So I
And
thought that was really cool
yeah,
what he did in that movie.
that's what these
Poor
critics
Karen
do.
Tate.
That's what these critics. You can't
Stinky
unless they're
stinky
like
toe.
this.
Oh yeah, go for it. Who wrote
So
this?
I will say most of them were good. So I mean, I picked that one, but the majority of them, most people love this movie, like, and for good
Nice.
reason. And this one's very short. I would say, what was it? I forgot to highlight these. Here we go. So it's the exact opposite. Timecrimes, which had a brief theatrical run in early 2009 but didn't play locally, is that rarest of rare things, an intelligent time travel movie that actually holds together on closer examination. I'm not
Mhm,
saying that time travel itself holds together, but this film, by its own logic, does, and it doesn't cheat to do it. That's what I loved about this review because it's very
mm,
true. It literally, once you find out what the rules are, it doesn't break it. And I've seen this movie plenty of times to see all the little things that you like. Once you know what's actually happening, you're like, oh wow, that's there, that's there, that's there, that's there. This is happening
mhm,
now. This scream is this person. You're like, oh, okay.
mhm,
And I think that's what makes it such a great movie. Is that it sticks to it. Like they must have had to like really like had a bunch of copies of the scripts and like had to like storyboard everything just to be like, okay,
mhm.
we're not messing everything up, right? Because certain scenes have three different scenes going on all at once, and on your
Yeah,
first viewing, you won't realize it.
mhm. Yeah, but I mean, despite all that, I think less is more, and I think they definitely simplified the whole science behind the time travel in this movie,
Yeah.
and it worked because I mean, as an audience member, you want to make sure you're not confused, and you want to follow the story and everything that's going on, and I think they nailed it.
And I think that's what we were talking about earlier. That's, I think, one of the big differences between this and Primer
Mhm.
is this actually doesn't, you don't actually know how the machine works, right? You don't know
Mhm.
why they need this white liquid in there. You don't know because, all you know is if you time travel, depending if, and you're still in the same spot, you'll cause reflections. That's all
Right.
you know with the time travel. You don't actually know how the machine works or
Mhm.
anything like that. I guess the only thing you do know is that it has to be on for it to work. You can't time travel to any time before the machine is on, which I
Mhm.
thought was interesting.
Yeah, I got to see that one again. It's been a while since I've seen that one, but
Yeah.
but no, this one I think it's spot on. I wasn't confused, and it wasn't like holding your hand like other movies would do. Like, oh, this is what it is. Like, the one character that's like, drawing it on the wall.
It's like
Going
this
to
is time
specific.
travel.
This is you, audience member. You're a dumbass. So let me do this for
Do
you.
you get it?
Yeah. Um, but I liked it. So this was a really good pick, Fado. I like that.
Good, good. Well, I'm
Thank you.
excited.
By the way, who wrote that review? I don't think I
Oh,
saw. Give credit to that person.
uh,
Let's not forget. Ken Hank. Is that
Ken Hankey from Mountain Express, Asheville, North Carolina.
well done?
Great.
Well done.
Oh, he
Ken
died.
Hank. Did he really? Oh,
Yeah.
rest in
Wow.
peace, my man.
Yeah. Great review. I'm glad I wasn't shitting on that review.
Yeah, I know. I know.
That was a good review.
Thank you,
Um,
Ken
thank you,
or
Ken.
Hank. Ken
Ken,
Hank.
no, Ken Hank. Yeah.
Ken Hank.
Ken
Wow, two
Hank.
first names.